Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, every person listening to this podcast will have encountered a CRM system at some point. But can the same be said of a digital adoption platform, or DAP? But today I've invited Dan Adika, founder and CEO of a company called WalkMe, onto the show. And they are an Israeli software company that went public in June on the NASDAQ. And I invited him on the podcast today because it seems to me that companies are constantly investing millions on trying to digitally transform their entire operations, and this involves deploying hundreds or thousands of applications. If there's a business problem, like in sales or HR, guess what? There's an app for that. And enterprises are spending $500 billion on software this year alone, and they're going to spend nearly $750 billion in 3 years by 2024. So yes, software vendors are constantly delivering new features and improvements which enterprises continue to buy up, deploy. But guess what? Nobody is focusing on software adoption. Nobody's focusing on the actual people who need to use the software for the digital transformation to be successful. And that is why 90% of all digital transformation projects often fail. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Tel Aviv, where Dan will talk about digital adoption platforms and how they enable organizations to measure, drive, and act to maximize the impact of their digital transformation, to improve productivity, and the most important part for me, humanize technology and drive more effective use of all that software. But enough from me. Let's get Dan onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Dan Adika. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WalkMe. A bit about myself. I started my technology career in the IDF. After that, I worked a bit at HP Technologies and then started WalkMe. Moved to San Francisco in around 2013-14 to expand the company. And here we are now, 9 years later. WalkMe is over 1,000 people company worldwide. We invented the category called digital adoption platform. And today we have over 2,000 customers, global footprint.
I mean, as you said, you are the co-founder and CEO of WalkMe. And before you came on, another thing I learned that you were recently went public on the NASDAQ as well. But before we go there, I mean, a question I'd love to find out a little bit more about is your origin story. Can you remember where your passion for technology came from and what put you on this path?
Sure. So I always like technology. Obviously, I like to build stuff. In my army service, I was a developer, so this is where I got most of my knowledge of how to build web applications, large-scale applications, etc. After I discharged from the army, I looked for the next challenge, and actually it wasn't my idea. WalkMe was one of the co-founders, but I remember the first meeting we had in a coffee shop in Tel Aviv. And the idea was so simple. I thought it's weird that there is no something like that already exists. But he described how his mom is calling him and nagging him how to do stuff online. I'm sure everybody that listened had that experience. Mom, dad, you know it. Like, hey, how do I do this? How do I get my latest information from my telco provider? How do I change my billing address? And like, hey, you see the button on the left, click there. You see that, click there. So obviously that's annoying. And it's like, hey, why there is no something like a GPS just for the web? So you will just type what you want to do and something will just pop up on the screen and will show you how to do it. And I'm like, genius. Yeah, why not? Like, everybody needs it. I'm in. Like, it was that fast. obviously it's really hard to do something like that on every website, even website that you don't know. So I understood how complex is the challenge, the technology challenge here. But I said, hey, let's do it. And I got our CTO near that was in my unit too. And we just started to meet every day and write code for almost a year until we got our first product.
I love that. And I love that part of the story where it all began from that coffee shop meeting where to a lot of people listening, they would have come across similar problems. They would have put the world to rights. They would have complained, but they wouldn't have done anything about it. So I love that you did. Yeah. And I also read a great quote from you where you said that while software vendors are constantly delivering new features and improvements which enterprises continue to deploy, nobody is actually focusing on software adoption, the actual people who need to use the software for digital transformation for it to be a success. And that is why 90% of digital transformation projects actually fail. As soon as I read that, I thought, man, exactly that, because I've been in the IT world before. I've seen that happen so many times. But can you expand on that observation?
Sure. So actually, we're seeing amazing vendors, right, building amazing software today. But one of the strongest thing is that most of those applications are platforms. So they give you the platform to enable your business. So the thing is that each company has their own business processes. So you go in, you have this nice application, let's say your CRM, okay? And the CRM allows you to do a lot of things. And you want to do something very simple, like qualify a lead, okay? So they give you everything you need, like all the fields, all the automation around it, and so on. But then come your own complexity. Which lead is it? Is it an enterprise customer? It's a small business. Suddenly your own complexity coming into that application. And because those applications are platforms, you find yourself tweaking and adjusting the application to support your business process. Guess what? You created another level of complexity because someone needs to explain the end user, which is your employee in that example, how to use it. Now, it's not that they don't know where to click per se. They just don't know what to do in certain use cases. And what happened today is that that's one thing that happens. The companies themselves creating another level of complexity because of their business processes. And obviously, a CRM can do so many things. Today, our CRM is like our ERP. We're doing everything on our CRM. We have 8 or 9 developers just tweaking our CRM. So we're adding more features. The vendor is adding more features. So that's actually creating even more and more complexity. Now, when the vendor is creating the features, they're not thinking about all of their customers. They're trying to solve the main use case and obviously give the tools for the customers to, again, tweak and customize in order to nail all the use cases. And obviously that creates a massive issue, especially when today we're expecting that adoption and even productivity will be like a click of a button, right? You go to Netflix, you don't have a lot of choices. Right? You have 2 buttons and you click. But when you're coming and you're doing a little bit more complex process in your day-to-day job, like you want to take a vacation, or you want to change your address or your billing address in your bank account, or you want to do something that is a little bit more complex and not the main use case, suddenly it's becoming very hard. There is no standard where all the websites and all the applications are doing it exactly the same. Therefore, you need to know how to do it. Now, in our vision, in a few years, you will just type what you want to do and it will work for you. Think about it. We're today working for technology and not vice versa. You would expect technology to adapt to you. What do you want to do? Right? Hey, Neil, what do you want to do? Hey, I want to know what is my forecast for Q3? Oh, here we go. Here it is, right? No, we need to go, log in, go to forecast, change the drop-down list to Q3, click OK, right? Like there is a lot of things that you need to do, very equivalent to machinery in the in the 19th century, right? You clicked, you pulled, you did a lot of things. Now it's the same thing. You just click on buttons on the screen.
So with your digital adoption platform at WalkMe, you're on a mission to enable organizations to measure, drive, and act to maximize the impact of their digital transformation and ultimately improve productivity. But also, one of the things that stands out on what you do is also humanize that technology and drive a more effective use of all of the software. But the question I have to ask, and it's a pretty big question, I know that, but how do you do that?
Yeah, as I said at the beginning with the founding idea, right? It's actually way more complex than what people think. Because if I'm equivalent the digital world to the physical world for a second, right? In the physical world, you actually have streets, right? And you have roads and you have highways, and then you map the world, and then you have GPS and coordinates, and this is how we can actually get around very easily. You can get from point A to point B. You open Waze, Google Maps, whatever. In the digital world, it's infinite world. People are creating it and building it all time. So what we need to do, we need to understand the user interface like human beings. We need to be able to scan the UI and understand exactly what's going on there. If we're really understanding it and we know exactly what each button means, what each link means, what's the context where the user is currently in, we can provide a much easier experience for the user. For example, a walkthrough that will get them from point A to point B. For example, understanding where people are getting stuck. Now, we want to do it effortless, and we want to do it without the users need to code or change stuff or do something to their application.
And we've covered a lot of ground here. Do you have a use case that would just bring it all to life of how it would work for somebody listening and that digital transformation process, just so they could understand how it would work in their world?
Sure. So I would start with a simple thing, right? Imagine that you want to take a vacation.
Yeah.
Right? And people now on the call, everybody thinks about their job and how they're going to do it, right? With system, what steps they will take. That takes a lot of time. And to be honest, 20 to 30% don't even know how to do it. Imagine that all you do is go and click, hey, I want to take time off. And I'm leaving today and I'm coming back in 2 days. And that's it. And it will just work for you, right? It will just go and put the data in. That's from the user perspective, right? We want to make them, we don't want to teach them how to do stuff. We just want to do it for them or make it so simple for them to do it so they don't need to learn new stuff every day, right? So that can be one example. Another example can be, I want to see my billing status, right? And you just type it and we go and take you to your telco provider and show you exactly your bill. Right? So really imagine a GPS experience to your digital world. You type what you want to do, we're just taking you there. Right? That's for the end user. For the companies, CIOs, CDOs, CTOs, right? IT managers, what we're giving them, they're deploying hundreds of applications across their organizations. Those applications are not applications that they built themselves. They're buying, right? They're buying Salesforce, Workday, SuccessFactors, Oracle, you name it, right? They're buying so many different applications, not just from the big vendors. Now, they don't have one place where they can see all the data from all those applications and see all the user journeys and understand all their business processes in one place. It just not exists. They need to go to each individual application in order to fetch the data. So what we're giving them a full dashboard for their entire digital assets. And we're not just showing them the usage, like, hey, you have 500 logins, 300 logins. We're actually going one level deep. And we're showing them, hey, this is what they tried to do. By the way, it took them 20 minutes, 30% failed, 70% succeeded. The 30% that failed because of those 3 reasons. Wow, now they know exactly where they need to focus. When they have the data, they can go to our, what we call action, which is our engagement layer, the walkthroughs and so on. Now they can provide help exactly where people are getting stuck. So now those 30% that are getting stuck, when they're getting stuck, WalkMe will pop up and say, hey, when you're selecting this value from that dropdown, you need to check that checkbox. Then you need to go to a different page and do that, and only then click save, and it will work for you. You don't need to call IT. You don't need to be frustrated. We will show you the way. We will show you exactly what to do as you're doing it. And that's the beauty in digital adoption platform. It's the flywheel between the data and the action. Without the data, it's still much better, because instead of a map, you have a GPS. But remember the old GPS software before Waze and Google Maps that didn't understand the traffic and didn't understand what to do? That's what we're bringing. We're taking the data into account, and then we can show you exactly where you need to deviate from the process, or exactly where you need to actually put a certain data piece or not. And it's just not just changing the user experience, it's actually get the real ROI to those companies from the investment on technology, right? Because when you're buying software, you're buying it for a reason. You want your sales team to forecast better. You want your support to answer faster. There is a real business reason why you implemented software. And we're just making it a real reality for them and not just something they buying on a paper.
I think your words will resonate with so many people listening. You don't have to be frustrated. You don't have to call IT. And I think one of the phrases that you hear everybody saying in every organisation is, I just want it to work. And that's where everybody wants to be. And I also read that IBM have used WalkMe to lower their user abandonment and improve tech onboarding too. So, and I think there's a stat I read there that with WalkMe, the company saw something like 6 times higher retention rate and 300% increase in product adoption and an 80% increase in revenue as well. So those stats speak for themselves. But are you allowed to expand on that story?
Yeah, sure. So IBM actually using WalkMe for their customers, not just their employees. So that use case, I remember when we started the partnership with IBM, which is an amazing partner, they came to us and said, look, we have hundreds of different applications across different verticals, different line of business, and so on. And we need one consistent way to onboard users. We need the same user experience, the same look and feel, the same methodology, because we have so many different teams, and those teams are dependent on shared resources for onboarding, for feature adoption, for funnel increase, and so on. So we started to partner up with their team, with their chief digital officer and other teams from their UX and so on. And they built this amazing framework to how they want it to work. So kudos to them. The framework is amazing. We are the technology behind it to actually make it work. So each product owner, when they want to create a feature adoption, when they want to do a certain things, actually use WalkMe, right? And they have all the designs and everything already standardized. So each one don't need to go and invent the wheel. So it's allowed them, one, to deliver faster, but really actually understand the user engagement and be super agile, because if they release a feature and they're seeing that there is not enough adoption, they can immediately target those audience with some walkthroughs and make sure that they're getting to the outcome that they hope to get. Now, with a big company like that, WalkMe today, I think it's over 100 different products, right? It needs to be a true platform that standardizes everything. So that's one example there. But obviously, we have today over 30% of Fortune 500 as customers, 60 of Fortune 100, 10 of the Fortune 10. So really big organizations are depending on WalkMe today, not just for their customer onboarding and customer experience, but both for their employees and vendors and other partners. I will tell you one thing we saw in COVID. Most of the companies are hiring people and they're mailing their computer, right? It's getting with FedEx or something like that. That's your first day at work. You get a computer. Now you need to onboard to this company. So what a lot of companies starting to do now, you open your computer and you have the WalkMe onboarding list. First thing you see on your desktop. And then we're starting onboard you step by step by step by step. Amazing experience. But even more importantly, we're feeding back the data to the company so they know, okay, we hired 300 employees, 280 did a good job, 20 didn't complete the onboard. They don't know what they're doing. Maybe we need to focus there. Now, you don't see the people. They don't even know who to go to, right? And that experience, it's something that we're pushing. Again, IBM is one great example, but there is a lot more.
Such a great point you made there, because after the last 18 months, there were so many people that would have been recruited online, onboarded online, and yet to meet their colleagues face to face inside an office. So it's great to hear how you're offering this solution there. But what advice would you offer to a business leader who everything we've talked about today resonates with them, and they want to humanize technology and drive that more effective use of all their software or key applications, etc.? What would be the advice that you would offer them?
Yeah, it's very simple. You need to be data first. You need to have the data. Even before you decide exactly what to do, what to change, an organization that doesn't base their decisions on data probably won't be able to maximize their ROI in any aspect. And today, before digital adoption platform, it wasn't even a possibility to get the data. Now it's there. Now you can get the data from your employees and vendors and customers, and you can see exactly the journey, and you can see exactly what they're doing. Leverage that. Get the data. Make sure that you're understanding your long-term goals from your digital transformation initiatives, what you want to achieve, and then look at the data and see if it's matching. If it's not matching, you need to do something different, right? You need to prioritize, you need to change, you need to do other stuff. But I would say data is key, and probably we'll see more and more and more organization leveraging those data capabilities in order to make really critical decisions.
And this year, I think we should also note, it's been a hugely successful year for you guys. You've gone live on the NASDAQ. I've got to ask, as we prepare for life in 2022, where do you go from here? What's next for WalkMe? Is there anything else you can share about the road ahead?
Yeah, sure. So look, for us, going public was just a milestone. One of the reasons we decided to go public is for the recognition. We invented what we called DAP. We actually even invented the word, the acronym, and to be the first public company, that's a huge honor for us. But still, DAP is a new category. So when we're looking at 2022, 2023, and so on, what I just told you, and it's not just us saying it, actually Gartner predicts that 70% of organizations will use DAP by 2025. That's where we need to be, right? We want to make sure that, one, we're doing the market education, talking with our customers and our prospects and understanding their challenges, and provide more products that will allow them to be successful with their digital transformation. So it's all about our technology and our product. We're investing a lot in that. And we want that DAP will be as known as CRM. When you talk with CIO, they will have a CRM and they have a DAP platform. That will be like obvious for everyone.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with me today. We did begin talking about your origin story. I'm now going to have a bit of fun with you and ask you, what was the soundtrack to your origin story? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has inspired you or just helps you get your head in the zone? Or maybe that soundtrack when you're flying around the world for big meetings, etc. You got them noise-cancelling earphones on. Is there a particular song and story you can share with us today for our list?
There is actually two. One thing that me and other founders and people that close to me always put it in the beginning was like Frank Sinatra, I did it my way.
Yeah.
Especially when you're creating a category. we add our own truth. We always say, hey, we're doing our best. That's like, it's hard. People are not getting it sometime, but this is the way. And try to stay true to yourself and to your vision. Obviously change if it doesn't work, but you have your goal. So I would say that. And another piece that I recently saw, and I really like it, is not to worry when you have a problem. Because when you have a problem, there is two things. Can you change it? If the answer is yes, don't worry, let's change it. If the answer is no, don't worry. Anyway, you can change it. And that gives you a lot of peace when obviously you have a lot of issues that you need to deal on a day-to-day basis.
Love that. And I'll add those to the Spotify playlist. And for anyone listening that wants to check out more information about your digital adoption platform, or just more information about WalkMe, or contact your team with any questions, what's the best starting point?
Our website, WalkMe.com. Leave details. We'll get back to you as ASAP.
And there's going to be a lot of people listening before today's episode didn't know what a digital adoption platform is. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on here, walk them through that and what to expect and the difference it can make. But more than anything, with your very personal origin story too, and the soundtrack to that brought it all to life for me. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much.
So WalkMe drives users to action as they use software or websites, providing that step-to-step guidance without requiring the user to leave the screen and spend their time watching video tutorials or reading those tedious and dreaded manuals or FAQ pages. And this is the point now, isn't it? Because we've got people, like I said very early on in this show, we've got people being interviewed online. They're now being onboarded online, and then they're given a computer that arrives in the post, and they're just expected to understand how all those key applications work and what access rights they have or may not have. Maybe they need different access rights too. All those headaches and teething problems of your first day starting for a company were bad enough when you were inside an office, never mind if you're sat at home. But I'd love to hear everybody's encounters with this. If you've been recruited and onboarded online in the last 18 months, tell me about your experiences, good and bad, and also your experiences with digital adoption platforms too. Any insights, experiences, or opinions, keep them coming over to me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @NeilCHughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So a huge thank you to Dan for taking the time to come on the podcast today, and an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.